Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 86 from the Story Song and Action Book. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about Zackary and Zena Zebra and Zeke, the zookeeper at the zoo in Zanzazoom where they live. So before we do that, we're going to do a bit of review. So in our last lesson, we were drawing things that begin with the whistling whale's WH sound. And we learned that his sound is the sound that you make if you pretend to hold a whistle up in front of your mouth like this, and you blow air, and then make Winky Walrus's sound and go, wha. So that's the sound for WH. And we also learned that his sound is a consonant. So let's go back to Bay and do a little bit of practice with our consonant sounds. So here's Baby Barnaby, and his is the first sound that you hear in Bay. So we're going to start with Baby Barnaby. Ready? So show me bowing.
Baby, bay, I, Benny, bye, bay, oh boy, Benny, bye, oh, bay, you bow, Benny, bye, bow, wow.
Show me crazy.
Well, this is such a silly song, it doesn't mean a thing.
So toss it out.
Never mind the silly words, just pick a sound and sing.
M, move your mouth. May,
meets, may I, Minnie, my, may, oh boy, Minnie, my, oh, may you mow, Minnie, my, mow, wow.
Show me crazy again.
Well, this is such a silly song, it doesn't mean a thing.
Throw it out.
Never mind the silly words, just pick a sound and sing.
S, so we're surfing.
Say, seat. Say, I, Cindy, say, oh, soy, Cindy, so, say, you, sow, Cindy, so, sow, wow. Well, this is such a silly song, it doesn't mean a thing. Never mind the silly words, just pick a sound and sing.
Okay, so now we're going to start going through our sounds, and we'll start slowly, and then we're going to go faster and faster. So we just did S, so let's go to gliding. Gay, geet. Painting. Pay, I, pinny, pie. Pay, oh, poi. Catching. Kinny, kai, ko, you, cow. Tickling. Tinny, tie, toe, tow, wow. This is such a silly song, it doesn't mean a thing. Never mind those silly words, just pick a sound and sing. L, lay your head on the leaves. Lay, leet. Nibbling, nay, I, ninny, nigh. Nay, oh, noy. Washing, winnie, why, woe, way, you, wow. Vanishing, vinny, vi, vo, vow, wow. Now if we do that same thing, but now we make it just a little bit more difficult by going to our flashcards. So now our picture is getting very small, so let's try this. Ready? Say, seat. May I, minnie, my, may, oh, moy. Ninny, nine, oh, nay, you now. Linny, lie low now, wow. Let's keep going. Pay, Pete. Ray, I, rinny, rye. Ray, oh, roy. Dinny, die, do, day, you dow. Drinny, dry, dro, drow, wow. And keep going. K, fay, bay, I, binny, by. Shay, oh, shoy, shaving. Chopping, chinny, chai, cho, che, you, tow. Sinny, sigh, so, stow, wow. Now what happens if we do away with the picture altogether? So there I know it was hard for you to see the picture, but it was still there. Now there isn't any picture, so you just have to connect the sound to the letter. So don't worry about the letter name. It's the sound we're doing. So show me tickling. Te, te, say, I, sini, si, say, oh, soy, stini, sty, sto, stay, you, stow, linny, lie, low. Oop, get the card I wanted here. Plow, wow. Now we could keep going. Te, say, may I, mini, my, smay, oh, smoy, ninny, nine, no, day, you, dow, rinny, ri, ro, drow, wow. So you want to get faster and faster and faster with all of those sounds. So now in our last lesson, we did some drawing and labeling with things that had the white whistling whales WH sound. So before we take a look at the drawings that I did after the lesson, let's talk a little bit more about Pig Latin. We've done a couple lessons where we've done some things with Pig Latin, and I want to show you what Walt Disney has done with Pig Latin. A lot of the Disney films have a little bit of Pig Latin in them. And if you don't know Pig Latin, you might have missed it. But this is one where in The Lion King, Simba says to the hyena, Ixnay on the oopid stay. What do you think that means? Nix the stupid, or stop acting dumb. So even in the Disney films, you'll find Pig Latin. And if you know Pig Latin, not only does that make you a better reader because you're good at playing with sounds, but it makes it so you can laugh and enjoy the Walt Disney movies a little bit more. Here's two more movies that Walt Disney has done that use Pig Latin. In Monsters, Inc., they say, Uklay in the Ag Bay. What do you think Uklay in the Ag Bay means? Look in the bag. And so if here they took the L away from the beginning of look, put it on the end, and then added AY to get Uklay. And in Hercules, when they need to get away fast, they go Amscray. And Amscray means what? If you take the S and the C, the sk, or the scr in front of am, you have scram. So Amscray in Pig Latin is what in English? Scram, leave. So when I did my labeling, I did the labeling like we've been doing it. But then I went ahead and I added some Pig Latin words to my labeling. So here's what I did after our lesson last time when I went back and practiced drawing the whale, the wheelbarrow, and the whistle. So for the whistle, I put the word whistle in a circle because it's a noun. And then underneath it, I took the WH from the front, put it on the end, and added AY, and ended up with a whistle in Pig Latin is what? Isselway. And then I wrote, the shrill whistle startles. What does it mean to startle someone? It means to surprise them. And a whistle has a very sharp, shrill kind of a sound. Then for the wheelbarrow, I put the rusty old wheelbarrow wobbles and rattles. What does it mean to wobble? It means it kind of just, it doesn't go straight. It just sort of meanders all over the place. And where do you think I found those interesting words? I'm making my charts when I read books that have lots of adjectives and verbs in them. And then whenever I go to label my pictures, I go to those charts and I read down through the words and I go looking for an interesting word to use in my label. So then for the whistle, I wrote, well, I already did that one, the shrill whistle startles. Then we talked about the parts of a whale, and so I labeled several parts on our whale. First, he has a blowhole, and so that's where he breathes, and that's where he kicks the water up out of that hole in the top of his head and brings more oxygen back in. And then he has a fin, and if we take the F off the front of fin, put it on the end and add AY, a fin becomes an infe. So I wrote infe on my page. And a whale, if I take the word whale off the WH, a whale is an ailway. And his tail would be an ailte. But we talked about last time that another name for a whale's tail is a flute, or a fluke rather. And so I wrote fluke, and then I took the fl off the front of fluke, put it on the end, added ay, and a fluke in Pig Latin, guess what it would be? Ookflay. So you can have a lot of fun playing with Pig Latin. And then down at the bottom, I wrote a sentence. I wrote, I can write words in Pig Latin. I should have put, I can write words in Pig Latin. Can you? So you can have a lot of fun taking those words that you're writing and then underneath the word after you've written it in English, writing it in Pig Latin. So now if you have this page with you that we did last time, we did our song for Pig Latin, and you can take your reading finger, put it here, and sing the song with me. Ready? This is the way we whistle and spin while riding in a wheelbarrow. Or if we do it the way it is in the song, this is the way we whistle and spin, whistle and spin, whistle and spin. This is the way we whistle and spin while riding in a wheelbarrow. And then just like I did on my other page, I added some things. I wrote, this silly whale rides. So here's the whale riding in the wheelbarrow. And then I put a wheelbarrow hauls heavy loads. So you can put heavy things in a wheelbarrow like a whale and move it along easily because it has its wheel. And I put the round wheel rolls. So you can have a lot of fun with labeling and writing, and that's going to help both your reading and writing if you do a great deal of that. So in our story today, we're going to be talking about zebras. So you can have a discussion with your parent or your teacher about zebras. And here are two zebras. This is Zackary Zena, and this is Zena zebra. Now, a few facts about zebras. Zebras live in Africa, in the wild. And they don't live in a swamp or in a forest. They live in grassland because most of their diet is eating grass. Well, unfortunately, in Africa, there's less and less room for zebras to live in the wild because farmers and ranchers are coming in and they're plowing the ground and planting their crops and bringing in cattle to eat the grass instead of the zebras eating it. So in our story, there is a zookeeper named Zeke. And here's our picture of Zeke, the zookeeper. And Zeke read a story in the newspaper about what was happening in Africa to the zebras. Now, he had always wanted to have a zebra zoo. So he wrote to Africa and he said, well, since you don't have enough room for all of the animals that you have in Africa, can I get 2 zebras to start my zebra zoo? And so they shipped 2 zebras to Zachary, or to Zeke, so he could start his zebra zoo. Now, when the zebras first arrived, everyone was happy to come and see them. And here's some books you could read about the zoos. And this one is called, and these are 2 Skyberry books. This is called The Zoo and You, and this one is called A Zany Zoo Day. So you can read those to see why it is that Zeke might have wanted to have a zoo. And you can learn a little bit more about the animals that Zeke brought over by reading these 2 books. This is a true book about Africa and about the animals in Africa, and here are the zebras right on the cover. And then here's a story that somebody just made up, like the story that I'm telling you, that's called Zila Zebra. So those can be kind of fun for you to read. This is a movie that you might have seen that is called Racing Stripes. Now, in this movie, they train a zebra to race. But in real life, zebras are not very trainable. They don't make good pets. You can't ride them. So they've not been like horses. They look a lot like a horse, but they don't act like a horse. They kick really hard. They can break a lion's jaw by kicking, and they also can bite really hard. So zebras are not very friendly animals to people, and you would not want to have them for a pet, and you certainly wouldn't want to try to ride one. So in our story today, Zeke brings the zebras over, and he opens his zebra zoo. Now at first, when Zeke opens the zoo, all of the citizens of Zanzazoom, where the zoo is, want to come and see the zebras. And when they come to the gates of the zoo, they pay their money, And Zeke collects the money, and then he has lots of money to be able to feed and take care of the zebras. But after a while, Zackary and Zena got really homesick, and they wished that they were back in Africa, and they started to look sad. And nobody wanted to come and see a sad zebra. So people stopped coming to the zoo, and now Zeke was running out of money to feed his zebras, and he wondered, well, what shall I do? And so here's a picture of Zeke at first welcoming the new zebras to his zoo. And here he is when he had money to feed the zebras, when people were coming to see the zebras in the zoo. But now, not very many people are coming anymore. And so Zeke decided, well, since I can't feed the zebras, I think I'm just going to open the gates and I'm going to let them go and find their own food. And that's just what he did. So when he opened the gates, the two zebras zipped and zoomed out the gates. They were so happy to be free again. And in Zanzazoom, all the streets were in a zigzag shape. And so they zigzagged up and down all the streets of Zanzazoom. They went out in the fields and they ate the grass. And they had a great time. But then they decided, well, it's kind of nice having a good place, safe place to sleep. So they started back to the zoo. And as they headed back to the zoo, all of these people followed the two zipping, zooming zebras. And so here are the zebras dashing back into the gate of Zeke's Zebra Zoo. And here's Zeke back at the entrance collecting the money. And now Zeke has all the money he needs to feed his two pet prize zebras. And when he starts to run low on money, what do you think he does? He opens the gates, and Zackary and Zena go zipping and zooming through the gates. They zigzag through the streets of Zanzazoom and off into the fields where they eat as much as they want. And then they zip and they zoom and zigzag back to the zoo. And when they return, what happens? Again, Zeke collects the entrance fee, and then he has more money to take care of his zebras. So whenever you think of Zackary or Zena zebra, I want you to think of how they zip and zoom. So here's one gesture you can use. You can pretend to zip and go zzz as you're pulling your zipper up. You can zoom by going zzz, or you could zigzag and go zzz like this. Okay, so let's find out if that's a consonant or a vowel. So let's go to Are You Sleeping? Ready? Are you zigzagging? Are you zigzagging? Zackary and Zena, and here you can put their ears up. Zackary and Zena. Here, both their bells are saying, zing zong, zing, zing zong, zing. So is that a consonant or a vowel? Consonant. How did you know? Because we used ing and ong with it. So now let's learn the song for Zackary and Zena zebra. So warm your muscles up and show me them zipping, so they're running really fast, and zooming. They'll be zipping and zooming when they come zigzag. So do that again. They'll be zipping and zooming when they come zigzag. They will zigzag from the zoo. Now you can show me the fence around the zoo by putting your hands like this. They will zigzag from the zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. Now we need to make a Z, and so here's the shape of a Z. And so to make this shape, all we have to do is take one hand, and the thumb comes out for the bottom, and then your fingers tip like this, and then you can put your other hand on top of it, and there's a Z. So show me your Z. Z's for Zackary and Zena. Show me two. The two zipping, zooming zebras. The two zipping, zooming zebras from the zany zebra zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. Let's try that again. They'll be zipping and zooming when they come zigzag. They'll be zipping and a zooming when they come zigzag. They will zigzag from the zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. They will zigzag from the zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. Now make your Z. Z's for Zackary and Zena. Z's for Zackary and Zena. The two zipping, zooming zebras. The two zipping, zooming zebras from the zany zebra zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. Now let's try that with our recording, and let's see if you can follow the words while I point to them and do the gestures and sing along with the song.
They'll be zipping and a-zooming when they come zigzag. They will zigzag from the zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag. Z's for Zackary and Zena, the two zipping, zooming zebras from the zany zebra zoo in Zanzazoom, zigzag.
Okay.
June's pet mule likes to...
Sorry, sometimes I have a hard time getting that to stop. Okay, so here's your paper. So when you get your paper, you can go back to your seat and rainbow right over the top. And then I want you to think of some things from your life that you can draw pictures and write about that go along with this story. So one is, have you ever been to a zoo, or it might be an aquarium, or a place where you can visit animals that you wouldn't normally see at home? And you could tell about the experience and what your favorite animals were and why you liked them and what the animals were doing. Or maybe you'd like to be a zookeeper like Zeke. So if you ran a zoo, what kinds of things would you have to do to take care of the animals and to be able to afford to run the zoo? Can you think of something that has zigzag lines? And in our next lesson, we're going to be looking at some different patterns that use zigzags. So you might look around where you live and around your space and see if you can find anything that has zigzags, and you could draw a picture of it and then you could write about that. So I hope you enjoyed our story today about Zackary and Zena. And in our next lesson, we'll be looking at things, and I just mentioned the zigzagging, and here's some patterns I found of some fabrics that dresses and quilts and things could be made out of. And here's some snakes with a zigzag. So those are some things you might find that have zigzag lines that you could write about and draw. So I hope to see you in our next lesson. Thank you for joining me.